How we doing, everyone, and welcome back to another volume by volume. This week on Doctor Stone Volume 2. It's the only Shonen Jump manga I'm currently doing in this series, because I'm going to try and keep it to the series I have been doing. I do read a lot of Shonen Jump. There's a lot of Shonen behind me. But I gotta say, this volume was just enjoyable as the first. This is doing something similar to what Dr. Stone did for me. Or not Dr. Stone, I said the same thing. Fire Force did to me. What I'm reading in my private time is I pick up Fire Force and I read it as fast as I can because I really enjoy it. I like consuming what they are putting out. And it's really enjoyable. As always, I will talk the first chapter, and then I'll let you know that I'm going to go on to the rest of the manga, just in case I entice you enough to go out and buy this volume, things like that. So we're back with our cast of characters, Senku, Taiju, Yuzu, as they are running away from Tsukasa, the ultimate primeval, I keep saying prime evil because I can't think of it, primitive human, essentially the best fist fighter that existed in their world. They are trying to go out and make gunpowder. They stopped at some hot springs, and Taiju tells Yuzu that he can't confess the thing he was going to, and he'll tell her once they save humanity, because it's not worth telling her till they've saved humanity, because that's more important now. They do end up making gunpowder, but during that process, as we know, Taiju is a little too strong for his own good and sets off an explosion, which they know will allow Tsukasa to find them easier. But when they do that, another person ironically sends up a smoke signal, which is a big reveal that there might be other humans out there that are alive. Senku might not have been the only guy who got to revive. And so in that moment, they decide that they have to take the risk and shoot off another smoke signal so they can meet other humans. Because if gunpowder doesn't work, they're going to need manpower to be able to take down Tsukasa. And that's chapter 1. It's pretty quick. I mean, there's a lot more talking involved about what they're doing. There's some good science bits where they're describing how they're making gunpowder and how it's made. I think that's one of the big draws to this series is its science basis. There's a lot of fun stuff. It seems to be made by a nerd of science, a guy who liked science and wanted to be able to put it into a format that he enjoyed. But yeah, outside of that, that's all. I really enjoyed this volume, so haven't had any slowdown yet like I did with I'm Standing on this series yet. It's still just very enjoyable. It's a very good read, and I see why it's sort of like that underground hit. It doesn't have the same setups as Black Clover or other big named shonen. It's more of a fun, it's sort of like a Bleach, maybe, even though Bleach was still insanely popular, maybe like a Death Note, I don't know. Something that was not one of the big three, just a slight hit that's not huge to everyone, but good to smaller groups of people. But yeah, past this, I'm definitely going to be talking about more heavy spoilers, talking about what happens all the way up to the end of the volume, just so I can discuss what my thoughts were on it and give an overall review of what I had read. So if you don't want to do that, feel free to stop and leave a comment in the bottom. Tell me what you've been reading in your spare time. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'm going to keep this ball rolling. So they leave off after they've done off a smoke signal, and of course, Tsukasa does find them and takes Yuzu hostage. He ends up cutting her hair, which ironically, she sort of mentions that that's nice because it's hard to take care of hair in this time. And essentially, he and Senku have a little standoff where they talk about how if either of them wants to survive and do what they want, they can't have the other one. And he says, either you sacrifice yourself or I'm going to get rid of both of your friends that you love. And yeah, so Senku determines that he is going to sacrifice himself. After we learn this, we do get some backstory into Senku and Taiju and who they are as a friendship, and how Senku has essentially always used Taiju to do the stuff he can't, which is more of the heavy lifting and stuff like that, the more athletic things. It shows how Senku's dad was insanely interested in Senku getting into his obsession, which was science, of course, and how it makes him smart, and how they, as kids, pretty much said they would change humanity. And it's sort of funny because they're the chosen ones who chose to save humanity, maybe. But yeah, so Tsukasa does end up, he says he's just going to break Senku's neck. We get a scene with that. He kills Senku. Taiju gets to witness it. And essentially, the reason Senku did that was because he wanted Yuzu and Taiju to be able to get away. They do realize that Senku does have stone on the back of his neck. And so through thinking, through hints that Senku has given them, they decide that they'll just use some of the formula to bring that stone part of his neck back, because the guy did break his neck. And right when we're trying to figure out if it works, we get a whole chapter of backstory on Senku waking up in the stone world for the first time. It discusses how he learned how it works. He sort of hints at the fact that the reason he thinks he woke up first before anyone else is because he spent all that time thinking, because he spent the whole time he was stoned thinking about the possibilities of what happened to the world. And so we get this nice little fun moment where Senku's learning all these science things, from fire to clothing to eating, stuff like that. They have these fun like monkeys that are like reacting to him. It's like a nice light chapter off a very sad, serious chapter where we don't know if Senku's going to come back. But, of course, once we do get back to modern time, Senku does come back, because it is revealed in those flashbacks that the destonifying process has a huge healing effect. And another thing we learned in that flashback is how much Senku needs Taiju. Like, one of his focuses was figuring out where Taiju was, because he needs him. Because Senku isn't the strongest dude ever. They even proved that. He has to use a pulley system to lift something up, because he's not strong enough at one point in the manga. So he's showing how, like, even though he's so smart and knows how to do stuff, it doesn't make him perfect at doing every single thing, which I think is fun. It's a nice way to bounce off the main character and his friend. But yeah, he had revealed that, yeah, he was trying to hint them that the reviving process is super good healing. The only thing he can't figure out is why, when stone people are broken apart, can they not be reformed together by the healing process. It's still a mystery that eludes us. But at this moment, Senku tells Taiju and Yuzu that he has to separate from them, whether it be for a couple months or a year, because he has to take advantage of Tsukasa thinking he's dead. Because if he can do that, he can take the time to build up an army to be able to handle him, things like that. Taiju and Senku have a big moment of, like, having to say goodbye, because they are really good friends. They've been friends for life, because they don't know when they'll get to see each other again, because Taiju and Yuzu go to join Tsukasa's group, sort of to help him know that, or make him think that Senku is dead. And then that way Senku has some inside people to Tsukasa's group. They did also reveal to Tsukasa the way to destonify people so he can start building his own group. And so yeah, Senku sets off on his own, separate from his friends. He runs into a female who gets in a fight with Tsukasa, trapped under a tree, and that's when he uses the whole pulley system and saves her. We don't know who she is, but it does end off on a light note of her saying she's absolutely in love with him, probably because it's ancient Stone Age and people don't talk to humans a bunch, and there's probably not a lot of humans that are there, but we'll see. That's what we'll probably learn in the next volume. But it's a nice light note, because this volume did have some pretty heavy moments. I could imagine those chapters would have been very engaging to read as they came out. But yeah, this volume's really good. Like I said, Dr. Stone is very, very, very enjoyable. I see why people talk about it. I can see why not a lot of people love it, because it is sort of a little silly, I guess, but it just doesn't follow the main type of format for a shonen. It focuses more on science and quote-unquote nerdy stuff than like a fantasy fun power system that you can focus on. It's just their power system is the world and going through all the different ages. But I definitely recommend it. It's very enjoyable. I enjoyed it quite a bit. But other than that, y'all, thanks for watching. Like I said, feel free to talk about what you're reading in the comments if you don't read Dr. Stone or you don't care. Other than that, have a good one.